Hello, in this video, I will tell you about writing task 1 of the academic IELTS. So there are 6 types of writing task 1 tasks, but we group them into 3, and I'll tell you briefly about each one of them. So as you can see, here we have 6 different pictures, and the first one, as you can see here with lines, is called a line graph. And the second one is a bar chart because there are bars, and the third is a pie chart because it looks like a pie, and the fourth is a table, so you will get the numbers on table. And then we have a process, or we also call it a flow chart, so it shows how things happen like in a process. And lastly, it's a map. And as I said, the first 4, we group them into like charts because they all have similar types of information. So as you can see here, we have line graphs in the IELTS writing task 1 of the academic type. And that is how you get your task in writing task 1. You'll get line graphs like this, or bar charts like this. As you can see, bar charts can come in horizontal or vertical forms, and also pie charts. And here's a table, and we have processes. As I said earlier, processes are the pictures of a thing, how it happens. So as you can see in the first picture, it shows how a biofuel produced, ethanol is produced. In the second here task, you can see how sugar is produced from sugarcane. As you can see, there are arrows to show what happens after which action. Yeah, this is called process. And here we have maps. Maps also come in different ways. Here are some examples of them. And I will tell more about each of those types of tasks in separate videos. Today is just, in this video, it will be just a coverage. So it also can be that you might get a mix of tasks. Not the tasks, but types of pictures, like a pie chart with a bar graph, or a table with pie charts like this. And your report will be assessed based on these criteria. It is a public version of the assessment criteria for writing task 1. You can find it on the internet, and it's better to write your report and like try to cover the points that are mentioned in the criteria. For example, if your aiming score is 7, you read the task achievement, that is the criterion. So you will be assessed based on 4 criteria. That's task achievement, it is how well you did your task. Coherence and cohesion, that's the organizational part of the report, and also how well the sentences, paragraphs, the parts are connected with each other. Lexical resource, how good of word stock do you have, and grammatical range and accuracy, if you can use different types of sentences and also with no mistakes or less mistakes. So let's see. For a band score 7, you need to cover the requirements of the task, right? So what are the requirements of the task? That you can see in the task here. Summarize the information by selecting and reporting the main features. So you have to select and report the main features, right? It's so obvious. And make comparisons where relevant. So making comparisons where you can is also the requirement of the task. If you do this too, then you did cover the requirements of the task. For an academic, you present a clear overview. We'll learn about the overview when we learn about each of the different tasks separately. It is an essential part of a report in the IELTS. Of main trends, differences, or stages. Well, also, you clearly present and highlight key features or bullet points, but could be more fully extended. So, looking at this graph here, we see some key features. These are all the bars here and all these three types of dance classes by age group and location of dance classes, like here community halls 18%, school halls after school 24%, private studios 48%, college-based studios 10%, and number of students also here. These all are key features. They all need to be mentioned, yeah, and reported in the report. So next, for coherence and cohesion, you have to logically organize information and ideas. There is clear progression throughout. So the way you organize your report is done in a way that a clear progression is seen throughout. And of course, you use a range of cohesive devices appropriately, although there may be some under or overuse. So, cohesive devices help us to connect ideas, sentences, paragraphs with each other. That's why we need to use them, and of course, wisely, appropriately, in places where they are really needed. And lexical resource, we have vocabulary. So we need to use vocabulary which really describe our graphs, and we need to use them with some precision, meaning that it should fit the context exactly, and of course with flexibility. If you need an adjective form of the word, you should use it in the adjective form, or if you need a verb form of the word that you are using, you need to use it in the verb form. So using the words in proper forms is called flexibility. And you use less common lexical items with some awareness of style and collocation. Well, we like to use less common words in our reports, but it should also be done with some knowledge. So if you are sure about the style of that word, let's say you are writing a report, yes, with some common words, but then you decide to add like one word which is less common. How do you think that word would look in the line of words which are basic? That would look a bit different and maybe not fit, even if it is like less common. But you need to also consider the style of your essay or report, also the collocation. So you may have some occasional errors in word choice, yes, spelling, how the words are written, and word formation. But occasional, like not often, but in some places, like 2 or 3 maybe. So for grammar range and accuracy, you can use a variety of complex structures. So complex structures mean complex. We have different types of sentence like compound complex, compound complex, passives, conditionals, and relative clauses, defining relative clauses, non-defining relative clauses. All this inversion could be used in your report. So you have many things to describe, and you may start describing them with different sentence types. Like, and the first time when you describe, you use an ordinary sentence like narrative one, an active voice. But then next time you describe a second thing, instead of repeating the same structure of the previous sentence, you try to use a different type of sentence. So varying your sentence types is good. Produces frequent error-free sentences. So errors are not that often, as you can see. Error-free. Has good control of grammar and punctuation, but may make a few errors. Well, it's okay to make like 1 or 2 mistakes in your report for Band 7, as long as they do not distort the meaning. For sure, they should not at all. And of course, most of your sentence should be error-free. Okay, so these are the things that you need to consider when you write your report to get this band score. Okay, you can also read the other band scores here. Even when you do writing on Innovate and you get a result of your written report from a bot for each of the criterion, you can come and read this criteria and learn why you got the certain score and try to improve it from there. All right, and now let's talk about the criteria one more time. So what is expected from us to do for each of them? For task achievement, it looks at how well you describe your graph and how much information you have included. Well, did you include all the key features, or did you leave out some of them? If you did, it's gonna be around 4 or 5. But if you include all the key features into your report, then that can pretend for a band score 8. How you have selected your information. So it's also important. It helps how well you describe it. So when you select the main features correctly, then it's gonna be easy for you to describe it. And of course, you write at least 150 words because it is written in the task that you write around at least 150 words. You can write around 160 to 180 words. It's totally fine. But here it says better aim for 200, 210 words. It's not something that you should stick to. As long as you exceed 150 words, it's fine. And try not to write more than 200 words because then it's not gonna help you. It's just gonna be something like a mess if you just keep describing each of the items from the graph separately. That's how it ends up with many words, more than 200 words. But if you organize and group them well and compare them, that's how you like describe, then it will be around this word range, and I guess it is good. And for coherence and cohesion, how well you organize your information. Well, so organizational part is the most important thing in their report writing. That tells the examiner, I believe, how well you can report something in English. Imagine you had a task at work and you had to make a report about that. And how do you do it? If you have good language skills, it will be easy for you to deliver the message briefly and concisely. So It's about the organizational part, talking about the main features and comparing where necessary, and making the others understand what you are saying. That's what you should achieve. Okay, and of course, how well it flows from beginning to end. Flow is also important, that your sentences are not abrupt, they follow each other. That's called flow, and we need it from beginning to end. So for lexical resource, how much vocabulary you use. Try not to repeat your words. Try as many words as possible which are related to the graph that you are describing. For that, you need to learn some of them. Well, there are not many of, to, like, fortunately. Well, that's for vocabulary. Then, how varied, accurate, and appropriate you are with your vocabulary. The way you use the words in the text, in the context, also matters. If you are good with words that you understand the meaning of the word completely and can use it in the proper context, then it's really good. Of course, pay attention to spelling errors. If you misspell a word, I don't really think that it will count as the word that you used, because if you know the word yes, then you should also be able to write it with no spelling mistakes. Also, if you know the word, you should not misuse it. Misuse its form. Like an adjective, if it's in an adjective form, or if you need its verb form, use it in the verb form, and so on. For grammar range and accuracy. As we said earlier, it's how different your sentences are, like grammar structures, varying your grammar structures throughout the report, and of course, do it effectively. Effectively means like that they do really give the sense in the given way of the structure. All right, now let's talk about the structure. So it is the same for all types of tasks. First is always introduction. Second paragraph is an overview. Third one is main body 1. Fourth is main body 2. So there are 4 paragraphs here. It is one of the most common structures of the IELTS reports. There are other ways, like you may write your overview actually in the middle or at the end of your as a report. Or you may even have a conclusion. It's also fine. But you may also not have conclusion because it's not necessary for you to have it. So you just need to learn one structure and get used to writing any report in the following structure. So you need to practice that structure a lot, that it will be easy for you on the test day to just write about what you are given fast, because you have only like 1 hour, but you will do this task in less than 20 minutes because you have a bigger task in writing, which is writing task 2. So you need to practice this structure writing. I mean, you can have any structure that you choose, but this is one of the most common and most logical, in my opinion, structure that you can use. Okay, now let's talk about this, each of them. We have introduction where you paraphrase the question. We'll talk about it more, or maybe we should now. So, how is it done? When you paraphrase, as you can see here, we have the topic. The task comes with some like topic sentence, or just a description of the task. Your task is also to describe your task by paraphrasing the description of the task from the task. So, how do you do that? We have here the words like the graph below. You may write the line graph, you may be specific. You know the names of the charts, so you can use the names of the charts. If the task says the graph for all types of tasks there, you may specifically name them. Like if it's a line chart, say line chart. If it's a bar graph, say a bar graph. If it's a pie chart, say them. Or if it's a table, say that it's a table. What's next? We don't say below. That's a mistake of beginner students. Below means where the graph is located in relevance to this topic. It's below this task. But when you write your report, the graph will not be below anymore. So you don't really need that. So you can just forget about this word and not mention it at all. And we have the word gives here, shows, shows. There are many words that you can replace these two words with. It's like illustrates, similar meaning, presents, compare, even better if it has also an object which says what it compares, provides. These are good words that you can replace these verbs with. And of course, look at the other words. Information on the numbers of participants for different activities in one social center. So, information on the numbers. We have the word numbers. How can we paraphrase it? We can just say how many participants, people who take part in something. We can just call them people. And of course, we have participants, right? So people took part. This will be the same as participants for different activities. Well, they took part in various activities, different various. At the community center, at one social center, community, social, they are like similar words. In Melbourne, Australia, for the period 2000 to 2020. Wow, we can also change the time in our introduction, like for from to, we can use between and. Okay, this was like paraphrasing word by word. There are many ways of paraphrasing. So let's see the second one. The chart below shows the number of households in the US by their annual income. Okay, so the number of households, here we have data on. So you can use this to any other reports, I guess. Not for all, of course, but for most. It presents data or information. Data means information on American households. So here we have households in the US. How else can it be paraphrased? Of course, in the US could be an adjective and describe households like American. American households by their annual income. Well, by means like the way they were grouped, divided into groups, yeah. So it's like classified according to, instead of saying by, annual, yearly, income levels. Income levels is, as you can see, the word income, we did not change, but we did add the word levels, and it's considered to be paraphrasing as well. Income or income levels, they are like almost the same thing in 2007, 2011, and 2015. Well, you don't really have to change every single word. Change only if it makes sense and if it's not too much. And let's look at the third one here, this 3 pie charts. Well, there are 3 pie charts, that's why we mentioned the number, but although this task here does not mention it, so it's totally fine for you to include some of the facts from the graph. So to be more detailed. But of course, do not add anything, like not everything. I mean, try to be very specific. So the 3 pie charts is good, really. It's not saying just pie charts. Compare the proportion of nutrients. So show the average percentages in typical meals of 3 types of nutrients. And what we see in the pie charts is like portions of meals. That's why here we said that they compare the proportion of nutrients in standard meals, namely sodium, saturated fat, and added sugar. Like here it says 3 types of nutrients, but does not mention which nutrients. But in your introduction, you see from the graph those 3 names and you are being more clear, so it's good. And which can be harmful, let's go back to our topic, unhealthy, when consumed excessively. Excessively means too much. So when consumed, eaten, these are similar. This is a good paraphrasing. Okay, and here the table provides figures for the percentage, the proportion of households in Australia. Of households in Australia living below the poverty line in 1999, broken down by family type. So here we have in poverty, below the poverty, broken down by family type, so different categories of families. That's how it was here added through a comma, through a relative clause. Okay, here we have a task that you can do to see if you grabbed the point. So here we have the first one is a topic task. Second one is the paraphrased introduction of this task. But some words were not paraphrased. They were just written the same way. Your task is to find a word from here which would replace this word. Like traffic, it is the number of vehicles on the road. The graph indicates the changes in the number of vehicles on the road in the Netherlands from 1960 to 2010. So this would be a good paraphrasing. Next, let's talk about the next part of the structure, which is an overview. What is an overview? It was mentioned in band 7 here. And band 6, we have presents an overview with information appropriately selected. Whereas here it says a clear overview of main trends. So it's up to you. You may write an overview with information appropriately selected, meaning like you give main features. I mean, you make notes of some features, but to get band 7, you have to have main trends. So, and difference of stages. Well, for charts, we try to give the main trends. And what is a trend? Trend is here. Trend is a change over time in IELTS writing task 1. As you can see here, we have a task. We see a line here. It started from 2000 at around 65. It decreased a little bit and then again decreased slightly, then increased a bit and increased further slightly. So what do you see here? This is called a trend. This line from the starting point till the end point is called a trend, change over time. What about this one? Second line here, it goes down, goes up, goes down, goes up. As you can see, there is some fluctuation, like a small fluctuation going. And here we see the third line actually going up, so a bit, right, it rose a bit, and then declined steadily. So this is like a gradual decrease for this trend. For this trend here, we see increase and a sharp increase in the next half. We also talk about it, and here to the last one, we also see increase. So describing each line in your overview is called change over time, describing trends. So what are the main trends? Main trends are what you see from the given picture, like from the first glance. Those are the main features. Let's see, here we have the main features mentioned. Like film club is the one on top. It was mentioned overall the film club remained the most popular activity. So that's what we see and notice from the first glance. Throughout the period, while participation in table tennis, it's here, rose dramatically. By contrast, meaning that we are saying that opposite, yeah? By contrast, amateur dramatics experienced a steady decline. So, 3 lines were described in here. This is an overview part, okay? And in the overview, it's important to mention the main trends. Main trends. So do you agree that these 3 are the main trends in here? I believe so, because what we need is the most one, and also we need the main differences that we see, contrasting patterns. What about the others? Well, we see this trend here is kind of going the same, right? And this year it joined from some time later, 5 years later, and it's going up, like nothing significant, but about the 3, we could talk about them. They are very noticeable and drawing attention, don't you think? Well, it's okay. You may actually describe the other trends, like all trends as well, but it would also be too much to write. 5 lines, imagine. So it is important that you can select your main features properly. Okay, I'll tell you, for an overview, try to mention 2 or 3 features. That's best. So you don't exceed or you don't end up writing too little or missing out some information. 2, 3, 3, I think is ideal. If you cannot come up with 3, you can just write 2 features at least. So what else do we need to write for an overview in charts? So for charts, it's always trends, okay? Trends mean change over time. What are charts? We have a line graph, bar chart, we have pie chart, and table. Actually, all these 4 that you saw in the first, I guess, slide, they all have something in common. They all have numbers which give data on something. So it's kind of similar for them all, or possible for them to have changes over time. Well, not always though, I'll tell you. Over time means like here, 2000 and 2020. So the changes which happened around this time between these 2 years is called over time, right? Change happens only if there are at least two time points. Let's say if you have only like 2000, only this one, how do you see if they changed? You see the change only when there is a second time unit. Like here, we see that it was here and then it went up. This is called a change. So you write about it, and also for charts, you need to comparison. So here we said the most. It's comparing. We're comparing all 5 and saying that the first one is the most popular. And also here we are saying while. Here, this one rose dramatically, right? And we have the word by contrast, meaning the opposite on the other side. On the other hand, we see a steady decline, which is the opposite of increasing dramatically. They are opposite, they were mentioned compared. So this is how you should write your overview. Try to write 2 or 3 features, write about the main trends, compare relevant ones. Okay, so here we have also main differences, stages, stages for processes. And we have main body 1 and main body 2. Always try to write at least 2 main body paragraphs. You may write 3 as well. 1 is also fine, but 2 is better because then you can show some organization in your report. So how? Let's take a look here. We have some cohesive devices. So overall, as you can see, is the starting cohesive device of the overview. When you write overall, it's clear for me or for any other reader that it is the overview. And then of course we contrast. Here's a word for contrasting while. And we have main body 1 and main body 2. So always start your main body paragraphs with a cohesive device. Cohesive devices are so many, but all you need to remember is like 5, 6 cohesive devices. The most common ones, maybe the most neutral ones, because, well, they need to tell their reader or the examiner what like what grouping you did for your report. So as the graph shows, I wouldn't say this is the best one, but it's okay. And the graph shows, you start saying this and you start describing. And then we have cohesive device like then, which shows that this is coming from the previous sentence. So this happened and then this happened. Regarding, it's also a good cohesive device, which is connecting your sentence to the data from the graph. So regarding film clubs, yeah, and this is a good reference word. When you start your sentence like with this word, this, you are referring to the whole sentence of the previous sentence. And afterwards means like after that, it's more academic, more formal, and we have the word but to contrast. And remember that we use the word but in the middle of a sentence. If you want to start your sentence with something contrastive, use however. However, this way. So this is main body with paragraph 1. Now let's talk about main body 2. So as you can see, we started with by contrast. So what does it tell us? That it tells us that you wrote about one category of things in your first main body, and in the second main body, you try to write the opposite of what you wrote in here. So you divided your data into two categories, two opposite categories. Let's take a look here. So we have this data. How do you decide to group? Grouping is very important. It helps you to compare better in your report. So we've got here like this pattern, like almost similar. These are similar. And this is going up, this is going up, right? So we might write about similar patterns in main body 1. So we can start from the most popular and include the other lines. For example, we can write about the one which is going up because it is something to mention. Like this is the most popular, and the second one also is going up. Almost ended up reaching the most popular club. And we can also write about this here, that it's also increasing. And we can now, in main body 2, write about something the opposite of what we wrote. So we mentioned that all these three are having increase. So they have similar patterns. This one is actually, by contrast, has an opposite trend. It's going down. So we write it in the second main body paragraph, which is contrastive to all these three. And we can also mention the fluctuation in it. Or you may mention it in the last sentence of the main body 1 as well. It all depends on the way you arrange, and also try to have some progression when you arrange your information. Here we have a sample report. So it's about that graph that we have here. So let's take a look how it was written. The first paragraph is just the introduction paraphrased. The line graph illustrates changes in the number of participants in 5 different activities at the school's social centre in Melbourne, Australia between 2000 and 2020. For overall, it says the one that we read previously, and now it's main body 1 and main body 2. In main body 1 here, it starts with at the start of the period. This is a cohesive device. It's telling us that this report is gonna be the starting paragraph. We can see it from the cohesive device at the start of the period. The film club attracted around 65 members. So we have the beginning. It's here, attracted around 65 members, and we start giving details, by the way. So in the overview, we don't write any numbers, no numbers. We need no or details. We just give the overall, as it says here, overall information, but we start giving details in main body 1. We said that film club was the most popular. Now we have to develop, write about it in detail. So we start our main body and start writing about the one that we mentioned here, the most popular, and we have to prove it. Attracted around 65 members, significantly more than any other activity. It is telling us exactly what this means here. Although, so we are comparing here, the figure dipped slightly to about 60 in 2010. So it's very important to mention every exception in your report. So as you can see, it is increased, yeah, but here we see only a dip. So we need to mention that thing. So it was mentioned, like every single, every detail that attracts attention is good to be reported. It then recovered to finish at just over 65 in 2020. So we have the beginning of it, and then the middle and the ending. What about martial arts? Martial arts also maintained, so also we are comparing, we are connecting similar patterns. This whole paragraph was about the increases, or the first two, actually. This grouping was done in a way that it took martial arts and film clubs into one paragraph because they have similar patterns. We have the word also, maintained relatively stable numbers, fluctuating between 30 and 40 participants across the years. Well, the second line here, martial arts, they have fluctuation, and that's all. And it is similar to the first one that we mentioned, so they were grouped together into one paragraph. Next, in contrast, amateur dramatics fell consistently from near 30 in 2000 to fewer than 10 by 2020. So it's very important to mention the details, like the numbers and then the years it happened. Musical performance followed the opposite pattern. So we are here saying in contrast to what is here, and also we are mentioning here that the next one is opposite to what we said previously, which is to amateur dramatics. Beginning with no members in 2000, the figure increased steadily. So oppositeness is that this fell consistently, but this increased steadily. They are contradicted. So the most notable change, however, so this was taken into another group occurred in table tennis. Starting at only 15 participants in 2000, numbers rose gradually until 2010 and then soared. So here, starting at only 15 participants in 2000, we're talking about the most notable change. So as you can see, this paragraph started with this one, which is a good cohesive device. It tells us that this paragraph is gonna be about the most notable change. So the thing about cohesive devices is that they tell the reader what the paragraph is gonna be about. So it's really helpful that you've put your focus on that thing. So next, it gives details like it starts and then it rose gradually until 2010 and then soared. So we said here that it was a most notable change, and we have to now give proof, evidence to that. So it says 15, imagine, and then it rose gradually, then soared. Soared means like it went up quickly, like suddenly, sharply, soared, reaching just above 50. Imagine, from 15 to 50, it's a lot. So that's soared, just above by 2020, making it the second most popular activity at the end of the period. Well, we are not just describing, we are also drawing conclusion, like what was the end result. So this is how you should write your report. Actually, these reports all were taken from sites on the internet, from IELTS instructors, and if I'm not mistaken, this was taken from IELTS Advantage, and some of them here were taken from IELTS List. These two are really reliable sources to practice your writing for the IELTS. Okay, that's it, I think, for today. I hope you understood the structure, what you are expected to write, and hope that you will write one report. Let's say I will maybe attach a line graph so you can practice your writing. Practice writing a report using the structure here. All right, that'll be it. Thank you so much for your attention.